Hello, everybody. I'm Candid, Frank Stanisci of Leaf Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. And I said smart TVs. Now on Leaf Talk, joining me is Mr. Undead Meathead, as he is known on Twitter. And I'm, of course, Candid Frank Live on Twitter. And you can, I guess, follow us on Spanglish on Twitter as well, I guess. Hey, Aaron, how's it going? Last time we were together, we had a hammer and tong, battle about you know who, number 88. We were pounding the keys that day, boy. Listen, let's finish that thing off, and I'm going to finish it this way. I'm just going to say the only thing that bothers me and what constantly bothers me about him is sometimes I know he does care. I believe he does care. He just doesn't show it sometimes. And when he did the press conference, he didn't seem at all apologetic or didn't seem to feel like he did anything wrong. It was like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. And that's what gets me going. His play, all that stuff, he's played a lot better recently. So I don't want to get down in the weeds. I don't want you to think that I hate this guy because I don't. He's not even worth hating. I got to be honest with you. He's not like, hockey players are not worth hating. They're professionals. They're playing for money. This is not an opportunity for me to like or dislike. You know what I mean? I'm not meeting them on Tinder. So that's where I leave it.
No, and that's fair, and I understand that. I also, granted, he could probably still use a little bit more seasoning when it comes to his mic skills. He doesn't cut the greatest promos. He doesn't always express himself the best way possible. So I can understand you're being disappointed with the way that he presents himself in the media and giving off that impression that he's not all that concerned. I can certainly appreciate that point of view. Lord knows there have been times when I've been an absolute tire fire on the microphone here too. So I can completely understand where you're coming from on that one, Frank.
So at the end of the day, it comes down to he has a little bit of Kessel in him, and that's probably what the problem is, right? You know what I mean? Like Kessel wasn't a guy who expressed himself very well either, but that didn't mean he wasn't a good hockey player.
No, exactly. I mean, Kessel had a certain abrasiveness to him as well, but that's neither here nor there at this point.
Yeah, he was a little, might not even be fair to compare him to Nylander because Nylander doesn't push as hard away as Kessel did. But I don't think that's anything personal on either of them. Like I said, they're pros. They play hockey. We talk about them in regards to what they're doing to make the team better. And, if they're going to do stuff that triggers a little criticism, it is my hope that they have, thicker skin than some Leaf fans. That's all.
No, I can certainly appreciate that.
All right, let's talk about last week. Last week was I guess it's fair to say it was a better week for the Leafs. Kinda. They the two Vancouver games, in fairness to the Maple Leafs in reviewing them, I think they had the edge in play. They were out goaltendered, as you like to say. And we'll take it first with Vancouver. They had a better shot at winning. I think they had a better shot at winning the first game. The second game was like, I don't know, it was Walking Dead in my mind.
Well, you look at the game on the 18th, they outshot Vancouver 39-24. That in and of itself is a rather significant margin. They won more faceoffs. They weren't held off on the power play. And Nylander, coming fresh off his stint on the COVID protocols list, got a goal. Not only that, assisted on Austin Matthews' goal in the second period. So, it's almost fitting that Bo Horvat managed to score the winning goal in overtime, as well as breaking the shutout for them. Just a little bit of the fairy tale element to it with them coming back. But they did, in all seriousness, they did get goalied by Holtby. He didn't look like he has the earlier in the season. He looked like Washington Capitals Stanley Cup winning goalie Braden Holtby.
Yeah, let's keep that in mind, eh? He won a Stanley Cup, so this guy has some ability, right?
Yeah, he's not exactly your average stumble bum like a
No,
Scott Foster or David
no,
Ayers.
no, no. This is a good goaltender, one that deserves a lot of credit in regards to history, and also, as does probably happen from time to time. It's how do you follow up a Stanley Cup? Not many players, and not many teams are, they don't have a string of them. There aren't many Gretzky's out there. There aren't many Messiers out there. There aren't, look at Chicago, like there are teams. And of course, how can I forget Crosby and company? I mean, those are very special teams with a lot of special talent and management that does the tweaking that's necessary in all those teams. They didn't win the next cup with the same group of guys. There were some subtle changes at the very least. Speaking of subtle changes, a welcome addition to the team. His first game on. We talked about Vancouver. The game against Winnipeg. Foligno was workmanlike. A little, he even said to himself he needed to find his legs. His legs weren't under him against Winnipeg in the beginning of the game. But by the time the game got rolling, we saw a good indication of, the way I see it is he's another Hyman or Hyman's another Foligno. But because Hyman was here first,
Yeah, we judge him based on that. I think he had a bit of a shift as well. He normally plays rather low event hockey. And when he played with Columbus, there's not a lot that happens just because of the systems that Tortorella has in place. They're a very slow and deliberately paced team. So, welcome to the Leafs. 2 goals in the first minute and 20 seconds.
yeah,
Right,
that
right.
totally. Whoa, like that was truly, and we just finished talking about a great goaltender and how he stood on his head and helped his team Vancouver win 2 games. Um, the other goalie that came, who was that goalie in net anyway? I know they had. I mean, who was that goalie? I mean, those first 2 goals were, not
Yeah.
totally his fault, but nothing you would expect from him.
No, when you're a former Vezina winner, 3 goals on 6 shots is usually the sign of a bad night. I mean, Hellebuck thought he could have played through it, but Paul Maurice is one of those slightly more unforgiving coaches. You get a certain amount of rope, and then once you hit that, you're going to come out for sure. So, 3 goals on 6 shots was all that Maurice decided that he needed to see out of Hellebuck in order to pull him and put Brossoit in, who, backstopped him. He had 21 saves on 22 shots for a 9.62 the rest of the way. Now, I'm not saying that Hellebuck could have snapped himself out of his funk if given a little more time, but, do you really want to risk it when you're trying to catch the Leafs is the question. And I think Maurice answered that.
Yeah, I think when he in the press conference, he basically said, "Yeah, I wanted to change the way the game was going. He wanted a
Yeah.
reset, and sometimes that's what you need to do. You need to, set aside the goalie's ego. I mean, we've seen. You think of Carey Price, but if you remember, a Montreal goaltender got traded to Quebec. Sorry, to Colorado. I consisted because he wasn't taken out. So goaltenders are kind of quirky. I'm not sure they like getting pulled. I'm not sure they like staying in.
Speaking personally, I've never enjoyed it. I've understood the need for it. Unfortunately, in hockey, it's not exactly like you can pull a goalie and then put the other guy right back in again after giving him 45 seconds or so to clear his head, which is what you can do in lacrosse. Usually, if you pull a goalie, that's it. He's done for the rest of the game. So, you know,
You look at the guy that came in, Laurent Brossard,
Brossoit, yeah,
Brossoit.
he did a
Yeah,
decent job.
uh, I'm looking here at statistics. It says .962 save percentage. So he
Hmm.
he did something to try and get that team back in it. He did his side of it. He kept his side of the bargain. That's one thing Winnipeg has established in this every game they played against Toronto and every game that Brossoit played. He has been outstanding. He has been, pretty good.
No, as far as that's concerned, he's been a very serviceable goalie for the Jets. Filling in where he needs to. being the backstop when they've found their backs against the walls on occasion, and he has had to go in relief, which mercifully for Winnipeg has been few and far between. It just didn't seem like Connor had it last night. So,
And Campbell was he did enough, and
yeah.
that's all you want from a goaltender is do enough. I mean, of course, you want him to be the best goalie in the world every time he stands between the pipes. But you know what? What you want is him to do enough to win. And the Leafs scored some goals too, which made his life a little less difficult.
Well, I mean, Campbell came in and threw a 919, so that's
That's not
above
bad.
average goaltending. So
Oh,
that's what you,
absolutely.
as compared to Riddick's 821 the game before. That is light
Yeesh.
years worth of difference.
Yeah, I think he had an 878 recently, so he's glad he put that behind him. Now the talk that we hear secondhand, he has been spoken to about being too hard on himself, and I don't think anybody anywhere is going to disagree with the fact that that kid Campbell needs to be easier on himself. He needs to, sometimes you got to file it, right?
Yeah, no, you got to have a short memory in this business, especially if you're between the pipes. And I think Jack did originally have a tendency to beat himself up a little bit, which what first was endearing, but it gets to be concerning after a while. Because I mean, dude, you won 11 games in a row to start the season. You've had a couple bad games. It's not the end of the world. This is your standard regression to the mean. It's going to happen. You can't be lights out all the time.
You expect Austin Matthews to score almost every game. You expect Marner to be involved. He got a goal. That's not, it doesn't happen a lot, him scoring goals, but he did in this game. But the guys that excite me, if I was a Leaf fan, and if you really want to go far, and in the playoffs, Simmons and Spezza chimed in, and those are the guys you need to score. If you can get your fourth line, third line to score. And imagine if the Leafs second line starts going at the same time with the captain, with JT on.
Oh, that would be marvelous. It really would. But to see those players get on the board is fantastic. The lines that we've got coming up, we can we can catch up with
Yeah,
them
go ahead.
in
Yeah,
a
mention.
second. But
Okay,
I
we
mean,
can talk about how they played.
mhm.
We're getting towards the end of this segment. What we talked about Nylander. Tavares has been looking good as well. The past couple of games, he's been very effective. And I wanted to talk about this, and we can talk about it in the next Leaf segment. The physicalness which they are applying, it is a godsend to Maple Leaf fans, and then to hear the Winnipeg fans complain, and the team Winnipeg to complain. Toronto's a dirty team. I could just see all the Leaf fans going. What? What did he say that really? But they are, it's a shame they lost a guy who adds to that in the back end, right? We'll
Yeah,
see how that works out,
yeah.
because now you got Sandin coming in instead, right? You got a pretty abrasive defenseman now replaced by a guy who didn't look out of place in the games that he played.
No, and he's been doing well for the Marlies. He's had a decent season so far. He's just getting everything back under him again. So I don't think he'll look out of place at all on the blue line. It'll be a welcome relief. Bogosian will be out at least 4 weeks with a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
So
That's
it,
that's 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 going to hurt a little, only in the sense that if they need victories, if they need to develop a process, Sandin playing more isn't a bad deal.
no, and at this point here, the Leafs are pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. They haven't clinched yet,
No,
but
not yet.
it's highly unlikely that the teams behind them will be able to catch them in time for the playoffs and bump them out. Is
And
what I'm more concerned about. So
I hear cap movements that suggest that Anderson might be coming back. They put somebody on LTIR. They save
mhm.
themselves some salary. Hopefully they don't lose, they don't put any more people on waivers, because really I think they can't afford to lose any, even though they're bottom end, whether it be a defenseman or whether it be a forward. They need that depth. If they're really going to make a move, they're going to need some guys, because we just saw how important Brooksy is, and he, he isn't at the top of the list of, he's not a number one guy, but he is very effective, and he was very good in that game.
Very true. Now, I know that you did mention them putting somebody on LTIR. That would have been Scott Sabarin. I think
Yep.
he might have damaged his hand in his tilt with Milan Lucic for his 1,000th game. But there's not a lot of cap savings to be found there. Sabarin only makes $700,000. So
yeah, well, it's still all about numbers as well. So
yeah,
for now,
it's all about
numbers.
massaging everything and getting everything to fit. So
I think the Leafs have to make a conscious decision. Do they want to lose a player, or do they want to bring, or they want to keep Anderson and trust the fact that he'll be okay going in cold in the playoffs?
And that the longer he's out, the more of an issue that becomes, because you have to look at whether or not he will actually be game ready. Sure, he's getting rested, and the injuries are having a chance to heal, but mentally, is he going to be there? Reaction time, is he going to be there? There's only so much you can do at practice.
We'll talk further about that. Let's. There goes the horn. Now we're in the first intermission. And first of all, and most importantly, folks, the Canadian Football League is finally making noises about coming back. Is it August yet? Specifically August 5th. That's good news.
That's wonderful news for fans. I know that they were setting a mid-June date, I think, for camp report dates. So hopefully August 5th, when that rolls around, it's going to be a fantastic long weekend. If that's the weekend football starts up again.
Oh. And the thing to note is that the league will carry on without Ontario and Quebec if it has to. That was one of the things that they basically said. So CFL talk 1:00 on Mondays. We'll talk more with, of course, David Morris-Sudi. National Lacrosse League, Gary Grube. We'll have more guests in. We've been having some really good guests. It's been very interesting. And looking at the Raptors, they lost to the Knicks today, 120-103. They beat Brooklyn 114-103 this weekend. Oklahoma City Thunder 112-106. TFC tied. This one's of interest to you. Tied Vancouver today.
Yeah, I saw that. I was actually very glad to see they actually came back. It wasn't a lot of fun to watch in the first half. I'll tell you that much right now, Frank. I was flipping between that and car racing because I don't think my heart can take it.
It's a new coach. It's a new coach, and there's some players not there that used to be there. There's some defense that. They have to rely on different players to do that, and also ball distribution. So they're a little different team, right?
Yeah, it's a different look for sure. I mean, it's a sight better than last year, but it's not giving me as much comfort yet. So,
well, new coach, new team, time to develop. It's time to develop the team atmosphere, and I'm sure they will. The Blue Jays beat the Royals and lost a game in back-to-back, the doubleheader last week. We talked about the first game. The second game was being played. KC beat the Jays 2-0 on Tuesday. The Red Sox lost. The Jays lost to the Red Sox 4-2. Then they beat the Red Sox 6-3 on Wednesday, and on Friday they beat Tampa 5-3. So they've had a pretty good week. The game's just gotten underway, their next game, so that's where they're at there. And then, of course, don't forget, folks, the NFL draft is coming up. And I know we don't talk a lot about the NFL, but I like to keep my eyes on that. Football's football. I'm not against the NFL, but I do love the CFL a little more.
Right there with you. It's good to see all the sports slowly coming back. It's good to see people in the stands on TV again. Just waiting to see, how quickly Canada can get caught back up with that so that, we can see our teams again.
That's right. Let's move on to the second period. And of course, the Leafs have 4 games this week, 1 against Winnipeg, Montreal, and of course 2 against Vancouver again. Time for revenge, I think. So on Saturday tonight, they play Winnipeg. We talked about the team tonight. What they have to do is basically more of the same, right? I know the coach feels they should spend more time in the offensive zone, but really it's about the big mistakes and giving a team like this, Winnipeg, opportunities. And again, I guess they're going to have to ramp up the physical play. What do you think?
Well, after the fines that were levied against the Maple Leafs, in particular against Zach Hyman for that chop to the Foch, and to Joe Thornton for his high hit on Mathieu Perreault, we're definitely a poorer team. As Paul Maurice said, they may have to go find some second jobs at this rate. But
Well,
I'm glad to see that they're finally showing a little competitive fire when it comes to this sort of thing. In particular, with Simmons dragging Pierre-Luc Dubois off the top of the goalie.
I, and usually you ram somebody into the boards. He drags them to the boards.
Yeah, well, just gonna put him up against the board so we can't do any more damage.
Yeah, no, you know what? Winnipeg has taken liberties against the Maple Leafs. They've done it repeatedly, and now this has been. I know we had our discussion about the Leafs and their tendency not to be physical. It doesn't have to be. There doesn't have to be any assault on people's craniums. That's not the kind of toughness I'm talking about. The kind of toughness I'm talking about is the kind that lets the opposition know that you're interested in partaking if they need be, right? And that's unfortunately the truth in the Aaron, you know full well. The playoffs, the whistles disappear a little bit, the cheap shots start to become more often and deeper, and I believe that the experience that Marner and Matthews and even Nylander have had, I think they've talked to the coaches, and if they've been giving, they've been given any suggestion, full well they need some guys riding shotgun so they can play their game, and that's the key, really. Toughness to allow your good players play their game, and your goaltender. My gosh.
And I think a large part of it is not that you have to have guys that will go, but you have to have guys that are willing to go.
Right.
And there's a difference between throwing five goons out on the ice as opposed to,
Absolutely.
somebody who's willing to drop the gloves. And I know that the complaint has been in the past that the team has been soft because they haven't been willing to throw hands. But and nobody's ever getting the impression that the Leafs are willing to throw hands. So they try to take liberties with that. But
That's exactly it.
yeah, and when there's
Exactly.
pushback, all of a sudden
Or
they're a
it's not
dirty
even.
team.
I want. I don't want to interrupt you, and I don't want to. It's the fact that they don't know. If the opposition doesn't know, you said it. You said it right. If the opposition believes that they're not going to push back, then you're going to push harder, right? But if there's a chance they might push back, it's like they say when you see Lucic playing and in his heyday, he made everybody else 3-4 inches taller, right? Because that's what it's about. In all honesty, that's what it's all about. It's the threat of violence that keeps things that are untoward from happening.
Yes, it's the implication that
Yes,
there could potentially be a Donnybrook.
there will be an invitation. An invitation will be taken up, and that's all I'm saying. It's just you don't want to be a pushover. And especially, and I think this is a testament to the fact that the Leafs, power play is not so effective. If you. I would have been okay, and with Dubas and Shanahan and company saying, that's our toughness, is our power play. Well, they can't say that right now. I mean, it's been better. It was better this week. They scored a couple.
Well, and it's. Sorry, my train of thought is now boarding at the station again. It just completely derailed itself.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. It happens. There were a couple things that I actually wanted to touch back on. And I know that people are expecting certain things, and I have heard from certain circles they want to see more of Nick Robertson. Just so everybody is aware, Nick has now played 9 games. If he plays one more, they'll burn the first year of his entry-level contract, and I don't think the Leafs are willing to do that quite yet.
They've done it. They've done it over and over again, but he hasn't done enough. In all honesty, he hasn't done enough for him to pressure them into doing it. That's my opinion. That's the way I see it.
No, I mean, he has played well.
Yes.
I just don't think he's been the world beater that everybody expects him to be at this point.
No, and I don't think he will be. To be honest with you, I don't think he will be. Yeah, not this year. Maybe in the playoffs he might show something given the opportunity. There's something missing in his game Um, and by that, I don't mean his talent or his ability. It just seems like he's not as opportunistic as he was when he first came. If you remember, he was a little more opportunistic before. Now he seems to be, and probably because of what you said, he's thinking more. And you know what happens when talented players think too much?
Everything else slows down.
Totally.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be able to be more natural, because that's what, that this goes to the same topic of why, you need to have some aggressive players so that, guys like Nylander, Matthews, and of course Marner can play their game and not think about stuff, and that's what Nick Robertson needs. He needs the ability to play the game, and I hate to use this term, but it actually means something. That is, have fun. I know the playoffs are coming and it's not supposed to be fun, but there is a level of enjoyment that's required to play the game well. And he doesn't seem to have it.
I was going to say, it almost seems like he's gripping his stick a little too tight.
See, we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Speaking of players that can give you a little bit more room on the back end, unfortunately, Zach Bogosian, and we mentioned this earlier, had an MRI done today. He is going to be out for at least 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. Based on how he accordioned himself into the boards in the last game, I thought it was going to be legs for sure, not shoulder.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that will give us an opportunity to evaluate everybody else, including bringing in Hutton. Scary to think that after Hutton on the depth list is either Liljegren or Martin Marincin. So we are that close to a Marv appearance at this point. So it's a good thing that we picked up Hutton when we did at the deadline. So we'll have to see if he rotates in tonight. I'm hoping he does. I haven't seen anything on that yet, but I'm missing the warm-ups right now, as we both are. So
yeah,
there's no way to tell. But yeah.
No, I think you're right. And the thing about Hutton is that it's important that he come into the lineup. We both know the reason, and that is that he's never really played with the Leafs. So it'd be a good idea to sort of get, it's totally different when you have, especially defensemen. There's a symbiosis that's required. In other words, there's an unnatural understanding of each other, and make it so that it becomes natural, right? Because it's one thing to see people on film, but playing together, that real feeling, he needs to get that. We knew that was going to happen anyway. We just don't know who was going to pull out of the lineup, because you know that the Leafs tonight, they're gonna field a team that's a little better, because they need to put some more distance between them and Winnipeg. But when they play Montreal, who are a little more physical, it might be a good time to give Hutton a shot. Yeah.
As it currently stands, what I'm seeing is showing Foligno, Matthews, Marner again as the first line, like last game. We've got Galchenyuk, Tavares, Nylander. Ilya Mikheyev is still looking to be a game time decision at this point here,
Right.
But he would draw in alongside Kerfoot and Simmons, and then Thornton, Brooks, and Spezza. So that's the forwards. We're looking at also Riley and Brody. Brody on the right-hand side, Muzzin and Hall, and then Sandin and Dermott. And it looks like at this point here, I think Campbell will be drawing in, followed by Riddick backing him up if necessary.
Sandin and Dermott have looked good together. Up until this season, they've played a few games and haven't been scored on. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that also carried through the last game. I don't think they were on the ice for a goal against.
Not as far as I
don't remember them being on the ice. I don't recall it either. I know that I knew that they had that that whitewash going for them. So I was paying a little bit of attention to how they were faring. Sandin, I gotta say, I know he hasn't grown 4 or 5 inches, and I know he hasn't gained 30 pounds. But he seems to be a little more physical there. He knocked a couple of players down, which, in earlier renditions of Sandin, and keep in mind, he's had a lot of injuries. He hasn't really had a lot of time to play. So it's not only he hasn't been up with the Leafs, he hasn't been in the AHL either. So, this is a guy who's watching the game.
Yeah, this is one of those fine examples of out of the frying pan and into the fryer. You haven't really had a lot of time, but we're going to throw you in there right away and see if you can swim with the big boys. So
Yeah,
It's been
and good.
gratifying to see his response.
It is. It is. He didn't look totally out of place, which is all you can ask for somebody who hasn't played many games in over a long haul, over a long period of time. And he's looked okay. And his partner looked good with him. He gets a chance to be a little more physical, right?
No, exactly, and they cover each other well. That's the other thing. That's the other thing that these two players do. They play off one another. They're aware of each other's style, so they are able to back each other up if needed.
Yep.
So
And the other two pairs have to play better on a more consistent basis. Riley and Brody have not looked good at times. More Riley, less Brody. Muslin and Hall have had their issues. I don't know if it's. I don't think they're doing anything differently, Aaron. I just think that they're playing against some pretty good offensive teams, and they really need to lock down other opponents a little better. They've had a little bit of difficulty, too many gaps. Even that you remember what happened with Muzzin out of position in that overtime goal against Vancouver that you called about the captain scoring. So that kind of stuff. There has to be a higher rate of success and making of good plays, a lower rate of making bad plays, especially with the playoffs, coming upon us here.
no, definitely there has to be a reduction in that, and I mean the same can be said for pretty much everybody on the team. They all have to be better. Because this is one of the most important stretches heading towards the end of the season. I mean, you've got what, 10 games left now, 9 games left now, so
Yep,
you
nine
have to be.
under 10.
Yeah, you got to be right on top of everything. Now, what I am really liking is the fact that they've actually put Sandin on the right side for the second power play unit. They're letting him do a little bit of quarterbacking there. I think it fits his particular skill set really well. So it'll be interesting to see how he does with that. I like the fact that they're putting the three grumpy old guys up front with the second power play unit as well. You got Simmons, Thornton, and Spets out there, along with Galchenyuk on the left hand side. So uh, it's
The
a
thing
bit of
about
a.
Sandin that I've always liked, and even right from his rookie year, his shots find a way to the net. That's one of the things that Leaf defensemen aren't very good at is getting the puck on goal. Too many of their shots get blocked. It really doesn't matter. The velocity isn't the issue. If you can shoot the puck so it gets to the net, that also means that a couple of your teammates sticks, a couple of legs on the opponent, and a little blindside on the goalie could turn it into a good result.
Exactly, and you don't have to rip a top corner every single time. You
No,
don't
not
have
every
to
time.
pop the water bottle off. Just
Nope.
send it 3 or 4 inches off the ice. You're going to bark ankles. You're going to hit shins, and people will eventually get out of the way, unless you're Tyson Berry. But he's no
Yeah,
longer our problem. He's with Edmonton.
right. Exactly. Well, he's been playing pretty well.
Oh,
All that talk aside, he's been one of their best offensive defensemen. He's doing pretty well. But it's all about chemistry, right? It's all about that. And going into these next three games, they need to do better than a split. 2-1 would be, I think, what they need at the very least. These
yeah,
three
they
games
need.
coming up.
Yeah, they definitely need to come out on top on in these next few games. It will only do wonders for them heading down the stretch. And with so
That
few games left, you need to pack as much in as you possibly can. So
and I should say 4 games. I wasn't counting tonight's game. So I think they should, if they can beat Winnipeg, and then they've got themselves 3 games that if they're not awake for these 3 games, Montreal and Vancouver twice, well, someone's going to have to check for a pulse, because there need not be any, there doesn't have to be any motivation on, the motivation board doesn't have to be filled with stuff. There don't have to be dollar bills on the motivation board. I think Montreal in itself, because of who and what they are, and of course, Vancouver, because of what they've done to the Leafs recently. So they should be up for those games, buddy. They should.
oh, definitely. But we'll have to see how they respond to those games as well, because you're looking at a Wednesday in Montreal followed by a Thursday in Toronto. So it's a back to
Yeah.
back with travel, and that has never been kind to the Leafs. They've always performed like warmed over dog meat. So,
There's
it's going
another
to be,
reason for them to learn,
yep.
another thing to conquer, right? Because that's what these young teams have to do with these young players. That's what they have to do. They have to learn, first of all, how to play in the big leagues. Then they got to figure out how to win, and then win consistently, and then win when they're not playing well either, because that is a characteristic required for every great team, especially if you're planning on, getting closer to the trophy.
I mean, doing the thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, we're here at our second intermission now, and of course, if you've just joined us, you're watching Leaf Talk and More, and the more is a lot of different stuff that we do in between periods, if you will. COVID-19, we've got, man, can Canada get any luck? Like, it's not always our politicians' fault, but we're in the problem situation that we're relying on others for the vaccine. And now we have India breaking records and also maybe not being able to forward vaccines to Canada. So here, at the same token, though, I don't want it to be all bad news. While India might need more of their vaccines, what's happening, if you're paying attention in the United States, is the demand, right, is lessening, and now the supply is overrunning the demand. So they might have some vaccine to spare.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I
Oh,
will take whatever we can get at this point. I've found the attitudes towards our whole situation with regards to vaccine in Canada rather interesting. And I'm going to draw an analogy here, so bear with me if you could. Imagine that you're at a party, and at that party you order a whole bunch of pizzas. But you order a whole bunch of pizzas, you order more pizzas than you actually need for this party. But when the pizzas arrive, they're late and they're smaller than they should be, and they've got the wrong toppings on them. Now that's not the fault of the
and they're
person who
cold.
ordered them,
And they're
and
cold.
but that's not the fault of the person that ordered them.
No,
That's the fault of
no.
the pizza company. So
We're not gonna kick the government while they're down. We've got the Ontario leader had COVID. Many people are questioning whether he's been isolating. I don't know if you heard, but you're supposed to isolate when you have COVID. And then, of course, God willing, he doesn't end up, in the hospital. We'll see anyway.
yeah, he's currently isolating at his grandmother's house, I believe. I don't think he tested positive, but one of his staffers did. So he's just sort of camping out for the weekend.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. The rates of hospitalization are up in Canada, of course, and not only with our premier, but with other people as well. We're very concerned. Anybody who wants to doubt that that COVID-19 is an issue, just drop in at a hospital. They're triaging, and that's not good, Aaron. That is not good to hear.
No, and we've reached a situation here. I know about a week ago, the Ontario government announced that they had found or would be creating 350 new beds. However, in order to fully staff those 350 new beds, you need over 1,100 nurses, which we don't have. And
That's the issue.
yeah, and there are classes of nurses that have had their practical exams rescheduled again and bumped because of COVID. So they aren't certified, and as a result, can't help. So
Some people, some media, moving on, sorry, some media are unhappy with Christopher Freeland's budget. Some are referring to it as short-sighted. Only time will tell. And unfortunately, these budgets around the world are going to be inflated by virtue of the fact that we don't know, we have no experience in these kinds of situations. So it's going to be really easy. Back again we go. Easy to criticize the politicians, but the situation is dire, and economically we have pressures that we normally don't have. And so the solutions that we usually come up with aren't always a guarantee to fix things.
look, there's a lot of criticism right now for the fact that they're trying to get daycare down to $10 a day. There's other things to consider as well. If you're going to be spending money, now is the perfect time to be spending money because we need to. If you're going to bag on the federal government for something like that, you need to reevaluate your priorities.
At the interest rate, that money that's being borrowed, in other words, that goes into the deficit, it's at a very good rate. It's almost zero. So, that's the issue, right? I mean, money's not hard to come by, and I know governments print money. I get that, but still, there's always the intention. You hope that they're planning on paying the money back. Moving on to the United States very quickly. Concern in North Carolina, a shooting. 10 police officers were involved. 7 of them, I think, they retired, quit. It's just crazy. Body cam footage hasn't been seen yet. A total different situation than what we've become accustomed to. In North Carolina, keep in mind, 3 days, they don't have to do it. You have to basically go to court to get to see the cams. So a cabal of media people are trying to get that information and those videos.
Yeah, as it currently stands, I'm showing 7 different deputies were placed on leave after the shooting of Andrew Brown Jr. in Elizabeth City, which is entirely unacceptable. 7 people placed on leave?
Well, no, a couple of them, I think, at least 3. I know the first group, 3 retired.
Oh, they took voluntary retirement?
Yeah, Aaron. That's the thing. That's the thing that makes it suspicious. Because if they retire, then they keep their pension no matter what happens.
Well, especially if they do it before any charges are brought or anything like that happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that
Exactly.
is very hinky to me.
Exactly. That's the that's the red flag thing that starts waving, right? So yeah, so we talked about India, problematic. They're having their issues. Let's go on to the third period where we get a chance to talk about the other teams in the North Division, or as what's his name on TSN, the Gord Downey division, the Memorial Gord Downey division. I think that's awesome. He's up there saying, "Yeah, I like that name. That's what you should call it." So the Leafs will be playing Winnipeg, Montreal, and Vancouver. We've talked a little bit about them. We could talk a little bit more.
Most definitely. I guess I really actually wanted to look more at the situation that Vancouver has, specifically because of what they're coming back from. I know that they beat the Leafs. Unfortunately, they turned around and then dropped a game to Ottawa. Um,
Yep.
there's a little bit of a surprise for everybody too. I think it's been fun to
Those
see
are your
that.
trap games. If you're Vancouver, you rest on your laurels, and Ottawa's a lot better than people give it credit for. I just don't think, to be honest, I don't think the North Division is that good. And I do believe that they could have they're going to have to play over their heads once they come out of the North Division. Whoever wins, they're going
My
to have to
question
play a
is
lot
though,
better.
how do you define a weak division, Frank, when 2 teams in the West have already clinched?
Yeah,
And does that
that's
mean that those teams are so much better, or does that mean the
no, no,
division
no,
is
no, no.
weaker?
What that means is they have played the other teams. There's more teams, first of all, in their division, right? So there's one more. Um, you know, uh, the points are divided a little better, and if you're a better team and you're playing everybody, there's a more of you have a better idea. Regardless of that point, all I'm going to say is they're playing everybody. They're playing a more of a variety of a game. They're playing differently. It's with here in the North Division. I just don't think that Ottawa and Calgary would be as good if they were in their old division, is what I'm saying. And I'm basing it on the simple fact that if the Leafs were in their division, they'd be hard pressed to make the playoffs. Not impossible. That's not what I'm saying. But I look at them in the division they're in right now, and they're having a better time, and playing badly, they're still having a better time. Many people have posted when I've criticized the Leafs, the first thing they do is they post the standings. Well, you and I can disagree. I just think that the wins aren't as valuable in this division as they are in the other divisions.
Now, are you
You're
saying that because there's only 7 teams, or okay?
partly, but more
Hmm.
importantly, the establishment of who the good teams are in a group of, I guess, what is it, 20? Let's see, 7, 33, 26 teams as opposed to 7. The ability to play all kinds of hockey and to also be less aware of your opponent, which means you've got to learn on the fly a little better how to play the opponent. Scouting is a little more difficult. All these things, and I just think that the Maple Leafs are one of the better organizations in the National Hockey League. And looking at it that way, when you look at the Leafs, and they are, they're an elite organization. Montreal has always been an elite organization. The other organizations, Winnipeg's an elite organization, but they're always, as an organization, always punching above their weight. Do you know what I mean? Like with the players that they have and stuff. Again, for me, it has to do with the variety. The repeated. It gets, look, it's gotten boring for some people. There are people in the media about 3 weeks ago who were going, well, I've had enough of watching the Leafs play Vancouver and Montreal. I'd really like to see what they're like against Boston and Tampa. Now, Boston and Tampa might give the Leafs a little more grief than Vancouver. Because Vancouver, they beat themselves for the most part, in my opinion.
Fair to say, but I mean, all of the play this year is all in division, right? So it's not like the 26 teams in the States are actually playing everybody else. They're all playing themselves. It's the same 8 teams over and over and over again for them.
No, don't they cross divisions in the U.S.? See, I'm at fault here for not paying attention.
I don't know. You know what?
Division.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've actually paid a heck of a lot of attention to teams outside of my own Canadian division.
But I think somebody corrected me on another show, and I think it was one of the other guys said no, because I thought that too, and I was corrected.
Okay, well, I mean,
they play each other, but either way, I was wrong then or I was wrong now. Either way, I that's what happens when you waffle, right? So during my waffling, I guess all I'm saying is, if they're playing all the other 3 divisions, Aaron, then there's a better structure to the team that's being built, because there's some boredom that's kicked in. And unfortunately, with boredom comes lackadaisical play, and with lackadaisical play come bad habits, and that's what I'm talking about. So if you're playing all those other teams, you got to be on the ball all the time. You're not bored. Everything's new, and you got and I just happen to think they have a better way of dealing with the game, because they don't have to have their guys wait a week to play. Everything about being in the Canadian division is difficult, because if we're just playing against ourselves, if we bring players in, if we need players but we can't bring them in because nobody wants to trade with the Canadian team, because they don't want to waste, there's some races going on, they don't want to leave a player hanging for a week. They would rather trade with somebody in there, in the US, and that way there doesn't have to be any sit out time. It's all those silly little things that give me pause a little bit and concern. That does not mean that any team that comes out of North Division is doomed to lose. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they have a and the other team that plays the North Division is going to be in the same position. It's going to be like the National League in baseball, but not even. See, it's even worse. It's going to be a total new experience. You really don't know what you're dealing with. But those other teams, if they've been playing all the other 26, they're going to have more. Their system's going to be more tight for that.
They're not. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, Frank, but I want to correct this now. The NHL has shared key details about the 2021 season, including that teams will only play against other teams in their own division.
I was corrected last time.
You were correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I just took his word for it. So it's okay. At the end of the day, forget what I just said. Rewind.
They're just playing against each other the entire time. They're not playing anybody outside of their own division. So that limits everything in the same way that the North is being constrained here. So
okay. The only thing I was sure of is there were no wild cards.
Yeah, there's no wild cards. It's top
the other
4
situation, right?
Yeah,
which is the other situation.
Now, Golden Miller actually recently put out a poll as well, asking about whether they should redo everything for the future going forward. And I'm of the opinion it should be top 16. I don't like the whole division and everything like that. I just think it should be top 16 in the league should play against each other.
When they have, mark my words, when they have all the teams in, when Seattle comes in, it's not going to be 16. It's going to be the 4 teams on the top are going to get a bye, and they're gonna
So
play
they're
in.
going to expand to 20. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll do that, Aaron, because that's where the interest in the money is.
No, that's fair.
It's only an assumption on my part. I don't know any secret message. We got only a couple of minutes left. We got to talk about the Marlies and the distressing fact that there will be no Calder Cup again. Aaron, that is so disappointing. 2 years in a row. That hasn't happened since the 30s.
Yeah, no, I mean they did just extend the Marlies not playing until the 28th as well. So that's again part of the part of the protocols. But yeah, it's
But
been a
what's this?
fairly
They're talking about playing playoffs, but not for the Cup. What's up with that? Did I
yeah,
misunderstand?
see, I'm not 100% sure how exactly that's actually supposed to work.
You're
Um,
going to play playoffs, but you're not going to go play for the championship.
Yeah, it's not me. I'm gonna have to do a little more digging on that one, but at this point here, I mean, it basically looks like once the season is done, the season is done. We'll have a little tournament over that, maybe for bragging rights, but again, they're not going to be awarding anything, so I'm not sure where we go from here or what exactly
Yeah.
happens.
Well, hopefully all the best. It's a little sad, that's for sure, Aaron. Well,
Yeah,
Aaron, we've reached the end of another show. Thank you, sir.
not a problem. Glad to have made it to the horn with you.
There you go. Okay, for Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Leaf Talk, seen live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For Leaf Talk, news, entertainment, and more sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishSportsWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching. Hey, watch those Leafs. They're tough now.